Hey everyone, today we are going to be covering extensively every deck list that'll be found in the Twist format for June 2024 in Hearthstone. It is a totally new format where there are 19 different deck lists, 19 unique heroes with hero abilities and passive abilities, and already pre-constructed deck lists. And for the next 2 months, we're going to find out which of these deck lists are the strongest over time. We've got a spoiler of all 19 deck lists, so I'm going to walk you through all of them, and we'll kind of rate them as we go through. One thing to keep in mind when rating these decks, there are a couple things that you have to be cognizant of. Number one, this is not a standard format. So, nor is it a wild format. So you aren't going to be seeing all the cards or all the traditional archetypes that you would normally have to face. So the traditional rules of Hearthstone and how we understand value and tempo may change a little as the archetype, as the format develops more and more. That said, there are a couple things that you really do want to look out for. You want to look out for how much life the hero has, starting life, how strong their passive is, how strong their active hero power ability is, as well as how many cards they have in the deck. So, all the decks have different variations of all of these different factors, as well as the synergy of the deck itself with their other things like their hero power and life total. These are all things you have to take into consideration, as well as what of the other 18 constructed decks you may be facing, right? Or 19 constructed decks. So we're going to go through each one. I'll show you the deck list for each one and how you can get these decks and how you can play them. So let's move on. So first off, we're going to look at Dr. Boom. In order to play this deck, all you need is the original Dr. Boom card, the neutral 7-mana legendary. So you can see here, for health, he starts out with 45 health, which is good. That is high. That is one of the highest numbers in the format. His passive ability is Boom Barrage, which means that after one of your mechs dies, you shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. And his hero power is a 2-mana hero power to summon a 1/1 Boom Bot. So if you look at this deck list, you can see it is a ton of mechs in the deck, or mech producers. I'm not going to go through all the cards, but there are many of them, but there are singletons of all of them. And I haven't noticed, but there are no Reno Highlander type cards in the decks. These are all just kind of like unique deck lists here. This one I think will be pretty good, because if you're able to dictate trades early or whatnot, there is a chance that you can disrupt the amount of cards in your opponent's hand or what he draws into, and probably find lethal pretty soon. I would rate this deck at relatively high. I would say that this is probably a 4 out of 5, maybe a 3 out of 5 of all the decks that are available, because draw disruption really is a big deal. Now, draw disruption, as you know, with plagues and bombs, is a little different than some of the other decks, or like things like secrets, right? Because even though your opponent draws a bomb, they still will draw their initial card. But bombs are 5 damage. So if you're able to put a critical mass of bombs into your opponent's deck, you may be able to take games away as early as turn 6 or 7. So I am interested to see this deck being played. I may try it a few times, although I'm not a big fan of using a lot of mech type of strategies, but it is pretty cool. The next one we have here is Illidan, Illidan Storm Rage. In order to play this, you do not craft Illidan, obviously. You craft Metamorphosis. Now, Metamorphosis happens to be a core card, so all players will have this deck immediately. They won't have to buy anything. And I think it's good that these decks that are free to play are, in fact, some of the strongest decks in the format. That remains to be seen, but it looks like it is. So for this one, you get 40 health, so slightly less health than you would get for Dr. Boom. So you get a small demerit for that, but your passive is Fell Inside. What that is whenever a friendly character attacks, reduce the cost of a spell in your hand by 1. Now, my understanding of friendly character means you or your minions. So your hero or your minions. His hero power is Demon Spite, 1 mana, +1 attack, and lifesteal. So just a Demon Hunter's hero power on steroids. I think that's awesome. If you look at the deck here, you got cards like Grave Defiler, which will get you a Fel spell. You have a couple very cheap Fel spells in here. All these cards that kind of want to attack and spells that you can make cheap. So I really do think that this is going to be one of the strongest decks in the game, like in the format. I think there's a lot of tempo to be gotten here, and it's pretty strong. And this deck list, among others, is relatively consistent and small. This one runs a lot of duplicates, and you have your top end with Jace Darkweaver. I really think this is a good deck. This will be probably the first or second deck that I play in the format. And I think I'm going to devote most of this upcoming month to running this format, like, solely. So anyway, I would rate this deck 4 out of 5. I would say that this is going to be a pretty powerful deck. Next up, we have Cthulhu. Cthulhu is one of the old gods, obviously. I don't know how this works if you have the signature versions of the cards, if that improves any of the cosmetics or whatever that you see with your pre-constructed deck. That would be cool if it did, but if not, it's all good. Cthulhu's ability is your health starts at 35, so even lower than the first two that we talked about. And his passive is I am inevitable, which means you get Cthulhu in your head. So after 2 friendly minions die, you also get +1/+1. And the hero power is a 1 mana hero power to discover a follower of Cthulhu. So I'm assuming this is one of the many different Cthulhu buffing cards. And Cthulhu's always been a pretty cool archetype, and this is just like a amplified version of what it can do, because now you'll never have to worry about not drawing the Cthulhu, and also you're gonna get you're gonna really be doubling the amount of Cthulhu +1/+1s you're putting on, because now you get an extra one for your minions dying. So I think that is pretty cool. This deck list is really like a board flooding type of deck with a ton of like tokens. Like we got bees, swarm of light bugs, like the imp gang boss. There's a lot of stuff to like kind of flood the board. But I don't know how effective it will be. Like, will you be able to reach a point where you can drop a big Cthulhu? I don't know. We'll have to see. It is pretty interesting. The health is a little bit lower on the lower side, and I don't know. It is really hard to say because Cthulhu is it's very difficult to kind of balance Cthulhu and his abilities. We'll see how powerful the +1/+1 is. I think it could be pretty powerful. Like, just remember, like this is a token druid deck with reach, pretty much. Okay, like you got pop-up, but you got like the best token generators you could possibly get with this deck. So if you're a fan of tree and druid or whatnot, I'd say maybe try to give this deck a chance if you have it, because it might be right up your alley. So I would give this one 3 out of 5. Next up, we have Zul'jin, another hero with 35 health. Its ability, or Zul'jin's ability, is Warriors of Amani. After you play a secret, you summon a 2/2 Berserker, and his hero power is 2 mana hero power to discover a secret that costs 1 less, right? Or it'll cost 1 less. I'm under the assumption that it is only Hunter secrets, but what that weights that. We'll have to see what that is, but you can see by the deck list here, we're running like every secret known to man. We got Product Line in here. We got King Plush. We got a lot of the cool cards. Do we have, I don't see the Huntress in here. So, that's kind of disappointing, but that might have been a little too broken, but we'll see how this deck list is. I don't think that this does enough. But the cool thing is, like, I guess one of the deals with the problems with secrets are they don't really put tempo for you, right? Like, they're just kind of like a spell, a reactionary type of spell, which your opponent has to play around, but sometimes it is easy to play around. Oh, actually, it does have Cloak Hunters, but now that you get a 2/2 Berserker with it, I think that does add some effective added value, because 2/2 Berserker is worth 2 mana for sure. So we will see how this deck goes. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. Next off, we have Force Warden Omu. I do not have this card, so unfortunately I won't be able to playing this. But his hero power is 35 health, and his passive is Rapid Growth. After you summon a treant, you get to adapt it. And the hero power is a 1 mana hero power to get a 2/2 treant. So that is pretty interesting, pretty strong, and this is very similar to the other token list, except this one goes more all in onto the, the board-wide buffs, like Drum Circle, things of that nature. So Cultivation, really looking to buff up a wide board, as opposed to feeding the wide board to the opponent to buff up a Cthulhu. So I do think it's pretty interesting. I personally don't really care for the token drawer playstyle, so I won't be crafting this, I think. But I bet this might be pretty decent, so I'm going to give this 3 out of 5. Next up, we have Kael'thas Sunstrider. So this is a legendary hero from, I believe, Alterac Valley. I could be wrong, but you might want to Google that. The cool thing about this is if you buy 1 pack of Alterac Valley for 100 gold, you'll get this card in it, and you'll be able to play it during the Twist season. The hero power is 30 or 35 health for the hero, and the hero power the passive is Spell Fueled, where cards that didn't start in your deck cost 1. Also, the hero power is also another passive, where at the start of your turn you get a spell, a playable spell, and you discard it at the end of the turn. So you will always get something that is useful on that turn, and more often than not, you will be able to play it for, upside. Now, the question is whether the playable spell is useful is another point, right? And we don't know. And the rest of the deck is just building up stuff that doesn't start in your hand. So it is pretty RNG, and personally, I think this deck might be okay, but personally, I don't find it to be this won't really be something that I look to play. I think it's really too RNG-ish, and I would love to be happy to be proven wrong with that, but I don't. In systems like this where it's constructed and whatnot, I don't want too much RNG involved. So I probably won't be playing this. I would say that this is one of the worst decks in the format, and because of that, I'm going to give it 1 out of 5. Oops. Next up, we have Xyrella. So this is a priest legendary, and the hero power and abilities. She starts with 30 health, which is normal, but the passive is Purify the Shard, which means that you can get your health all the way up to 6. Now, the coolest thing about this is that it totally changes the win condition of the game. If you hit your max health, which is 60, then you win the game. And damaging the enemy hero doesn't, it will actually heal your hero. So we don't know if damaging the enemy hero does damage to the hero, but we just know that it heals your hero. So I'm wondering if you can also win by just killing the opponent. I'm not really sure. So as you can see the cards here, the hero power is also a 1 mana Spark of Light to restore 2 health. And if after turn 8, like it's, restoring 4 health, which is pretty sick because, that can get you to 60 relatively quickly. You'll see a lot of the cards in the deck are healing cards or generating holy spells. I'm a lot of people are really high on this particular deck, but I'm not. I think, I don't know. I think it's a lot harder to get to 60 than it is to put someone to 0. So, I don't know, but I'm going to rank it a 2 out of 5 because I just don't think it'll be at the average play. But, it is a very interesting concept, and it's probably one of the more interesting ideas in this constructed format. Next up, we got N'Zoth the Corruptor. He's a 35 health hero, and his passive is Dark Machinations. After you play a Death Rattle minion, you trigger its Death Rattle. And the hero power is a 2-mana hero power to play a 1/1 copy of the last Death Rattle minion you played. I think that is pretty strong. N'Zoth is a Death Rattle hero. But if you look at the deck list, it is also another list with a ton of singletons. I mean, it has some great Death Rattles. It has a ton of Death Rattles. But at some point, there's just too much value and not enough, direction like to look for a win. And I think that is where this deck really struggles. It's going to pull in a lot of value for sure. And it'll be relatively resilient, but I don't think it'll overtake some of the stronger late games in the format. For that, I'll also give this a pretty low score. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Next up, we have Nozdormu, the dragon, right? I mean, the cool. I really like the flavor of a lot of what they do with these unique deck lists. This one, the health is 35, and the passive is it's about time, where you start with 1 extra mana crystal, but you only have 30 seconds to take your turns. So very similar to the actual card, where your turns are 15 seconds. Now it's doubled, which is, thankful, a little bit longer. But and in exchange, you get the wild growth, right, to start the game. Now, the hero power is Dragonflight, which is a 2-mana hero power to draw a dragon, and it costs 1 less. So basically, you're playing 1 mana to get a dragon, right? So I think that is pretty cool, but looking at the deck list, it's difficult to say whether or not this deck has what it takes to win. Especially with the 30-second timer. I don't think that the game plan with all these singletons is very clear on the consistency and direction of where the deck wants to take. So I do actually think this is going to be one of the worst decks in the game. So I'll actually give it a 1 out of 5. Patches the pirate. So, of course, we did have to have a pirate deck in the format, I guess. And, who better than to lead that tribal than Patches, right? So health starts at 35, and the passive is locked and loaded. After you summon a pirate, it deals 1 damage to a random enemy. And the hero power is 3 mana to draw a pirate, and its cost reduces by 1 after you play a pirate. So, and we don't know if when that happens, like if you can play multiple pirates to reduce it multiple times, but that is going to be really broken. And, quite frankly, Pirate Rogue is a problem. And this deck has singletons of everything, but it also has every problematic card. You get Parachute Brigand, you get Toy Boat, you obviously get Patches. You get a lot of stuff that just makes Pirate Rogue very, very good and wild. So I would be worried about this deck. I think this might be a pretty strong deck, especially because you're getting like a mini ship's cannon through the hero power. So I would go out on the limb to say that this is a 4 out of 5 kind of deck. Next up, we have the Lich King, and this is a straight corpse farming type of deck. Health is 35, and your passive is after you spend a corpse, you summon a risen skeleton with stats equal to the corpse's spent. And the hero power is a 2-mana hero power. Summon a 1/1 zombie with a reborn and charge, and it dies at the end of the turn. So, getting you 2 corpses every time you use the hero power. You see the cards, you get Runes of Darkness, you get a lot of doubles. Like, really, this is very, very similar to like how you would have probably built any typical corpse farming type of build. You get Stitch Giants, you got the Corpse Rides, big cards to have here. The only legendary, in this list being the Scourge, which is in general a really poor one. So I do think that is a poor effect, but I would think that this deck might be relatively consistent. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Sir Finley Mrrgglton. So for this one, you'll need the original Sir Finley. His health is 40, so above average, right? Better than what we're seeing with most of the other decks. And his ability scales with just as your Murlocs have rush. This is a full Murloc deck, so every Murloc you play can fight for the board. The hero power is float up, which is one mana to draw Murloc, and you'll notice that the curve of this deck is really, really low. I don't know. I think this might be pretty powerful. We'll just have to see. Giving all these minions rush, that might be very impactful in the meta. The only thing I'd say is that at least they're all singletons, so we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4 out of 5. Guff Runetotem. This is the Druid constructed list. So he starts with 35 health, and his ability is Might of the Fang. After a hero gains attack, they also gain that much armor. And the hero power is a 1 mana hero power, Feral Frenzy, to give +1 attack this turn, and you can use it twice a turn. That is pretty strong. So that means, whenever you use that hero power, you're getting both sides of it. So it's your original hero power, but just twice as good. And you get all the cards that you kind of want to like buff up a hero power. And it's a pretty interesting deck. Like you get the Inspire cards like Professor Palatrus. I mean, it is interesting, but I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3 out of 5. It's just very, very confusing deck list, but it may be quite powerful. So 3 out of 5. Next we get Leeroy Jenkins. And this one, your health is 40, and your passive is that both players get cards that cost 1 less. And the hero power is 0 mana. The next minion you play this turn costs health instead of mana. So you'll notice this curve is ridiculously short. Keep in mind that what you see there, like effectively, is even 1 turn faster, right? So, this higher end of Keeper Strength and Crusader's Order is actually turn 3 plays. I think this will be actually one of the worst decks in the game. I think there's something to be said about discounting other players' cards as well. So I just don't think that does this enough. I'm going to give this a 1 out of 5. Next up, we have King Krush. His passive is King's Decree. After you cast a spell, you reduce the cost of a beast in your hand by the spell's cost, and he has 35 health. I think this is going to be a very, very crazy deck. So the hero power is Apex Predator, and it's a 6 mana hero power, the most expensive hero power so far, and gives your hero +8 attack this turn. That is okay, but I think this deck is going to be very strong. You'll see, like, we got the top end, we got stuff like Undasta, King Krush, Xyrella, Blackwater Behemoth, some pretty big guys at the top end. And you have a bunch of these spells, and assumedly, casting multiple spells means that you're reducing the cost of a beast in your hand multiple times as well. So I think you're going to see these huge like threats hit the board relatively early, and they're going to play a big point of winning the game. I'm going to give this deck a 4 out of 5. Archvillain Rafaam. His hero power is Behold My Stuff. Your legendary cards cost 1 less. And his hero power is a 1 mana discover a spell from your opponent's class that costs 3 less. Sorry, this deck is going to suck. The hero power is good because you get a spell and it's like a 2 value play by using your hero power. And you do have all these legendary cards, but I don't know if a 5 mana Windrunner or a 9 mana Raid Boss of Nixia are enough. I just don't think this deck has what it takes to win you enough games. I'm going to give this a 1 out of 5. Lastly, we have Alakir, the Windlord. He has 35 health, and his passive is Elemental Evocation. After you play a legendary elemental, call upon power of an element, so which allows you to use the spells that you would have gotten with what's his name? I can't think of his name right now, but you'll get the access to those spells. Now the issue here is you only have a handful of legendaries. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 legendaries. So you won't be making use of the passive until much later in the game. But the deck list is kind of interesting. It is an elemental deck, but I don't find it that strong. I'm going to give that 2 out of 5